So we're for Cool Shiny this week, we're going to be doing a deep dive into all of the ads because while I did not watch the big game, I did watch every single ad, code it, put it in a spreadsheet. So we're going to talk all about that. And I found them pretty boring. Like I thought like the halftime show was great. I love Bad Bunny. I think Apple has done an amazing job turning that into a spectacle, a moment. I actually think that that is primed for other networks to like capitalize on that energy. I saw a lot of people talking about how like, okay, Bad Bunny's done, it's over. And then they were like packing up and going home. And it's like, if there was something happening on a different network that like people who like Bad Bunny and don't care about football were interested in, that would have been like the moment to air it, to release it, to drop it. So I think that's something that I would love to see like some NBC competitors tap into next year. Or I don't know if NBC is doing it next year, but whoever's doesn't have the Super Bowl, I think, or like Netflix, you know, if they were dropping something, like if Love is Blind dropped that night, I feel like that would be the night that I'd be like, okay, let's turn to this now, girls. So I think there's a lot of energy and potential there because there is this is so rare that like while I think a lot of the ads were boring and like nothing to write home about, getting this many eyeballs and this many people in one place is so rare in this fragmented landscape. And so as much as I'm like, yeah, they're boring, a lot of nostalgia, a lot of cameos and things you expect, you can't ignore it because it's just so pinnacle in culture right now.
Do you think that's like, I totally agree. I was listening to, I think it was Fox, one of Vox's podcasts. And they were talking about basically like the monoculture today, since everything is so fragmented. It's like football and Taylor Swift are like the two things that are like still monoculture. And Megan, do you think like, what do you think is like the time, like how much longer does football have as being that like monoculture moment? Do you think it's like its time's kind of running out, or the NFL's
Yeah.
like pretty good at relevance? Like, what do you think?
I think the NFL is doing an excellent job. I don't know about football as a whole, but I think the Super Bowl is still super
Yeah.
relevant and it's only growing. Like to Melissa's point, it's like it's more than just a TV event. It's like takes over a city and it becomes like almost like a festival. And even I was talking to friends about Super Bowl commercials and getting their perspectives. And someone was like, I was surprised Doritos wasn't there. Like you always see Doritos in the Super Bowl commercial. And I was like, you're right. They usually do have an ad, but I did see that they had a presence. Like I was served Doritos like content, like creators were here with Doritos on this like whatever event. So it's like even though they didn't pay for an actual ad in the big game, they had a presence at the Super Bowl. And so that's I think something we're just going to see more of like there's other ways into this moment besides just like an ad during the broadcast. And I think the NFL has actually done a very good job of creating those opportunities, capitalizing on them, and I think they've got a while, to be honest, that the Super Bowl will because it's one of those things where it's like by standing the test of time, it makes them even that rarer and the moment that more something people want to pay attention to.
Mhm.
So I don't think that the Super Bowl is going anywhere anytime soon, to be honest. I think it'll continue to be relevant for
Yeah.
the next 10 years, next 20 years.
And I think people, whether they're like sports fans or not, like me and my group of friends are not sports people. One of our friends is a Patriots fan, so it wasn't a great night for her. But like it was fun to like have an excuse and a reason to like get together in
Yeah.
person and like sit
Yeah.
at the TV, you know, and
Yeah.
eat food.
Exactly. And I think at the end of the day, that's what it is, you know, like it's an excuse to gather. It's not quite spring yet. It's still winter. We need a reason to get out of our houses and like hang out. And that's one of them. Like I think it's I saw a TikTok, someone was like, I've realized that the Super Bowl is just Galentine's Day for boys. You guys should call it Galentine's Day. It's like there's a theme, you dress up, you like play games. And I was like, yeah, it's pretty much the same thing.
Is Galentine still like alive and well?
Oh
More
yeah.
so than ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I mean,
like it's
that's what
so
ours
dominant
that's
that
what
it's
we
like,
did. Mhm.
yeah, like Emma had a Galentine's. I'm not having a Galentine's this year, and it was like a thing where I had to like tell my friends I'm not hosting Galentine's. And they're like, "Oh, that's okay," but it's like they were disappointed, you know?
I think like that it's officially like February 13th is like
Yeah.
official Galentine's Day,
Yep.
but
It's in the
yeah,
cool, shiny cultural calendar.
yeah, always. But yeah, I love Galentine's Day. I always celebrate it.
Yeah.
Okay, so yay, Megan will look out for Cool Shiny's piece on Friday. I'm excited about that. Okay, so like our second topic, the Cut, like last night, just released an article. Do you have a moment to talk about how Mormons conquered pop culture? And wanna shout us out because I literally, like, looked back in our archives from 2021, and we wrote a piece on our blog, I will resurface it, um, about how, like, everyone's favorite influencer is a Mormon. Um, and it's true, and I feel like it's, like, really, like, it was bubbling in 2021 where we released our piece, and now it's, like, fully there. So, like, obviously, the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives has, like, made a big impact, but, like, Whitney Levitt dominated Dancing with the Stars. Now she's on Broadway as Roxy Hart, and Taylor Frankie Paul is going to be the new Bachelorette. They've, like, just started dropping the promo for her season. And then obviously we have, like, Ballerina Farm, who is always, I feel like, in the news, like, every 2 months. There's always, like, a ballerina farm story, and Nara Smith and Rachel Parcell, who's, like, been around for, like, 15 years and is still, like, an OG Instagram influencer. Um, but it's really funny, like, the Cut piece, it got to, like, the what of, like, Mormons are everywhere. They're all over my social media feeds and all over my TV now. But I feel like the why wasn't, like, dug into a lot. So I want to ask you guys, why are Mormons and people from Utah so dominant in pop culture?
Yeah. So I had the same thought when I saw the piece. Like, didn't we write this with the same framing 4 years ago? Not saying they copied us. I think it's just, we're ahead of the curve. The curve's
Yep.
caught up. So it's fun to have that proof. And I think what we talked about in the piece, I believe, was like a lot of the lifestyle things that make Mormons and the more people who practice the Mormon faith like primed to be influencers, and kind of like the things that you are expected out of young women in Mormonism are also the things that we expect out of influencers. So it's
Mhm.
like they're expected to like work in the home, they're expected to help people and be like pillars of their community. They're expected to take care of children and have children very young. They're expected to journal and scrapbook and keep their appearance. Like there's a lot of talk around like looking nice to represent your family. And when you all of those things together, that is essentially what being an influencer is. And so I think like there's that. And then also I think because they're encouraged not to have jobs outside of the home, when influencing came around, that was very much a career that was encouraged that these women take up because it didn't interfere with like them being at home and taking care of the kids in the house. So there's that. And that's, I think, what we covered in the piece. Now that it's been several years and thinking about kind of like what more can we add to this discourse, I also think there's something about, and especially watching Mormon Wives, there's something about right now women unpacking kind of like how they were raised and like the patriarchy, but also not wanting to give up all of the stuff about being a girl because like being a girl is fun and it's nice and so there's kind of like an in between where people are like want to live in this I'm just a girl world, but also don't want to subscribe to patriarchy. So it's like, how can we exist somewhere in the middle? And weirdly, these Mormon wives specifically are doing this of existing somewhere in the middle where they're like in this super strict society and culture, but they're also doing whatever the heck they want and like are getting super famous.
Mhm.
And so I think that that's kind of the deeper thing that's resonating right now is that these women are navigating a kind of heightened version of the situation that a lot of women feel that they found themselves in, where it's like, I'm questioning the way I grew up, but I don't think it was all bad. Because that's another thing a lot of ex-Mormons will tell you is like, a lot of the things about my childhood and growing up Mormon, I actually really treasure and love. And it was very like pro family and pro community. And like, if like a lot of them who didn't face any abuse or didn't like have anything that they wanted to do outside of the confines of the religion, or like it was nice until it wasn't. And so I think that there's a lot of that in what we're seeing in the unpacking of like Taylor Frankie Paul and her whole narrative, and Whitney and going to Broadway, and then Nick Viall and Natalie were like, well, she's a mom. Like, what about that? And then there was a whole conversation about mom shaming. And I think because Whitney is a Mormon woman who has been raised to like be a mother and was a mother at such a young age, she is like the perfect person to have this conversation around. So that's kind of my theory, is like these women have long been kind of primed for this career, but also we're uniquely interested in like the Mormon woman struggle right now.
I love that.
I mean, I think it also is like an interesting time with the convergence of like what's happening in larger politics and like conservatives and, you know, like obviously like Republicans, and we think about like Turning Point, and we think about like, Erica Kirk even sort of speaking out about how um just there's just like other thread of discourse around just like being a stay-at-home mom is a job, and like, it's just very like counter again when we think back to the years of like, like boss girl culture. Not to say one is wrong or the other, or like that one negates the other, or you can only have one. But I do think that like, you know, Mormon women or creators that come from Mormonism, like there are just themes that are like being touched on in larger culture that I think like just also bring up like discourse as well, right? Like these are things that people can talk about and argue about, right? Like it's amazing how like again like Ballerina Farm herself, like there's just so many threads of like different angles into who she is, the brand that she created, whether it's like around her husband, around her husband's family, around the products that they make, the marketing of it, like all of the things. And so I think that that's like part of it too, is that it like taps into sort of this like there are multiple perspectives that you can have on all of these things, and it doesn't necessarily mean one is right or wrong, but like people can argue about it. So I think that that has also sort of like continued to drive interest on this. Not to mention, like, I think that there's always just this like fascination around like religions and cults and like, groups of people gathering around shared thought that might be different. Like I think that that always just like drives fascination. And like when there's like a group that like people consistently have like stepped away from, like that also can like create conversation. So I feel like all of those elements are like plus the themes that we talked about years ago. It's still like many women who grow up LDS, it's like journaling and scrapbooking, also aesthetics and family are all just like inherent in what they do. So like many of them are amazing at social media.
I also totally agree. And I also think it's like similar to the Real Housewives franchise. I think people are like fascinated with like getting under the hood of these like seemingly traditional women who are really like anything but if you pay attention to like their content. I mean, Megan, you wrote a piece for us on Ballerina Farm about like this was in last year or the year before. Time is hard. Um, but about like she was in the news a lot. I think she had just done that interview on her farm with the Times, and people were kind of coming after her for being a trad wife and like, are those the values we want to like push out in culture? And your piece I thought was so interesting was like, she's anything but a trad wife. Like, this is an entrepreneur, and she is bringing in.
I know that's like the irony.
Yeah, it's like she's a businesswoman, and it's what's really fascinating. And we see this with like Whitney. Like, she brought her husband. Like, Ballerina Farm brought like her husband into her business. Like, which is so fascinating. And like Whitney is on Broadway right now, and her husband is like the stay-at-home dad taking care of their kids right now. So I think, like, yes, on the surface, it's like very trad wifey, but they're like very modern women. So I think people like love getting under the hood of that.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is like kind of similar in vein of like creators, entrepreneurs. MrBeast is buying a banking app for teenagers. So Beast Industries, which is MrBeast's company, which is also valued at $5 billion, billion with a B, um, is acquiring Step, which is like an all-in money app, like a digital banking platform for young people. So it's like basically it gives them like a debit card so they can like learn how to spend and like manage their money or their allowances. I think it's like supposed to help with like college loans and stuff like that. Um and this is another thing that shout out to us. We called out like I think 6 months ago, the rise of like finfluencers, like finance influencers. And Fortune released a piece about how almost 40% of Gen Z now learns about personal finance through particularly TikTok and YouTube. And obviously, MrBeast is like the king of YouTube right now. So I'm sure he saw that stat also. Um, so yeah, in this article, Business Insider release, they talk about how like in recent years, even though he is the king of YouTube, he's one of the biggest creators on the platform. He's making like a very concerted effort to invest off the platform and kind of get away from like media. So he has like his Feastables, which are basically like Lunchables. Um, and he has a chocolate brand. And he's talked about how he wants to release a mobile phone service. So, like, you can have MrBeast Cellular. Maybe. We'll see. He's just teased it so far. And he also had MrBeast Burgers, which, like, was not a success. But he's, like, really, really doubling down on investing in, like, services and, like, physical products that people can buy. So I think we kind of talked about this a little bit in like our pre-call about how interesting it is that like he's so dominant on YouTube and is still looking for more and like investing in these new areas.
Yeah. I think that's really interesting. And then also, I think the idea of marketing something specifically to teenagers is like kind of an ethical gray area. Like as a researcher, that's like, we don't really go there. And if we do, there's a lot of like protections in place for minors and like getting their consent. And as you were talking, I was like, maybe this at the end of the day is just a data play of if you have these people sign up for your app, then you have all of this spending data on teens. And I feel like that's the cohesive thing that makes more sense to me of why MrBeast might want this, because he also, I would guess, being so prolific on YouTube, has a lot of data about his audiences there as well, and what ads he's able to like move the needle on. Like I would bet that he found he was like getting like people to buy Lunchables. So he was like, well, I'm going to do my own Lunchables. And so I think that there's kind of this larger question of like how much of the audience should they own? Like, do you want to buy everything from your favorite influencer, or should it be kind of like really a product recommendation vehicle where it's like MrBeast has the awareness and the reach, but does he also need to be the one selling the product? And apparently Jimmy thinks so, but I think from a consumer perspective, I wonder how sustainable it is long term. And we're going to kind of get into this in my next piece for MT Deco, where we talk about, I think that it's going to swing the other way, where people are going to care more about heritage brands and get kind of away from these, especially influencer and celebrity launch things that seem to just kind of feel from a place of like, well, this is the next move that makes sense for me from a business perspective versus like I actually have something to offer like this sector.
You mean like an existing legacy brand
Yeah.
would be where a creator would align themselves
Yeah. Like, I think,
versus like it would be like MrBeast working with Lunchables versus
yeah.
creating Feastables.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I think that we're gonna want that more because I also think as we're seeing, like, Mr. Beast's Beast Burger failed, and I think people are less excited about buying into new launches because so many of them get canceled. But all of the marketing levers that we have built work best with launching new products and work best for awareness. So it makes sense that if you're a creator, it's like, well, I'm going to be most successful raising awareness for something that has zero awareness versus pushing the needle forward on something that's ubiquitous. But I actually think longer term, that's where the value of creators is like bringing fresh perspectives to legacy brands from a more holistic perspective and not so much an awareness play. Because even in the luxury space, there's like this kind of collab fatigue where it's like no one cares about all these collabs anymore because it's like they feel useless. But it's like these are also celebrities where it's very clear that this is just like a cash grab. But I think if they were to take a more like holistic approach where it's like, okay, we're working with one creator a year on a line with just this creator, I think that scarcity would actually be more interesting. Like heritage brand plus new creator versus heritage brand doing a bunch of collabs with existing celebrities or influencer launching brand new brand to compete with heritage brand.
Interesting. Okay, so that goes to like the question half of this, and this has been like bubbling for years. I think MrBeast just does everything bigger than most other creators, but like it feels like it's harder and harder to find content creators who are just content creators now. It's always they have their own businesses, they're selling physical product under like their own labels. They're all like creators slash founders now.
Yes.
So, Megan, you're kind of predicting that people are getting a little bit burnt out from that.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's not sustainable. I think at the upper echelon we will always see this, like I think the Mr. Beast of the world will always be launching things, but I'm seeing a lot more middle tier influencers launch product lines. And I'm like, is this really going to be successful long term? And you have the success stories like Hailey Bieber where you sell to Elf, but even that, well, once she sells to Elf, eventually that's like an Elf product and it's no longer associated with Hailey Bieber. It's going to lose all of that cultural cachet. It like gets swallowed up by the machine. So it's like if you were there to invest in Hailey Bieber, she's like you're not as invested in her but through road as you used to be. She's diluted the investment. And so this is going to lead to just trust with whatever Hailey does next. It's going to be like, well, this is going to be cool until you sell it to whatever brand and then they're going to dilute it the same way that happened to Rode. And I feel like consumers have had this happen to them over and over and over again. And they're just getting tired of it and getting kind of exhausted with the launch of it all and are going to instead want kind of something that's actually made with them in mind versus made to move products and get them to buy things.
Yeah, I agree. I also feel like it feels like a lot of creators are like creating brands just to like create brands.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
I think it's like, I mean, MrBeast is like a good example of this. He even like the CEO of Beast Industries is like quoted as saying, "Oh, Jimmy wants to like start getting into like creating finance content." It's like, well, he's not creating any
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
it,
another example of this was, and I love her, but Claudia Saluski she has a bath and body brand called Cyclar. And like, it's like organic and sustainable. And like, I'm like, this is great, Claudia, but like, I'm not going to buy this. And like, I hope it's successful because I like you. But it's like, why you? And like, as someone who watches her vlogs, it was funny watching her like run into a bunch of hurdles, not in like a haha funny, but it's like she would be like, oh, well, it turns out this is actually harder to figure out than I thought. And it's like, yeah, like this is like, this is $1 billion industry. And like the reason why, and she would like come to the same conclusion. She'd be like, we're going to use less plastic. And then she'd be like, so it's so expensive to use less plastic. So this is where we landed. And I'm like, hey, girly, like, you're at the end of the day, you're just going to land at the same place as like Bath and Body and like anything that's already in Sephora, but you've spent all this time and energy and it's given her a storyline for the content. So like that's been interesting. But from a product perspective, I don't feel like she's adding anything to the space that doesn't already exist. But I do think she has excellent taste. And like, I would like to see her work with a brand who already has this mission on something that I would want to buy, you know? Like, I'm not going to invest in ground zero of Cycler, Claudia's brand that like, I don't know if it's going to be a success, but I do trust Claudia as a tastemaker to where if she was working with a brand that had the science and the backing and the experts, that would make me pay attention. That would make me spend my money, you know?
I totally agree. I'm, like, more of a casual viewer of Claudia, but, like,
Mm-hmm.
she got me into, like, journaling and into, like,
Yes.
really nice, like, moleskins and, like, planners, and so, like, when she released Cycler, I was like, "You should have, like, collaborated with Moleskine or, like, released a line of journals or planners because I would totally and buy a planner from her." Um
But the thing is, all of the reports at that time when she launched this were like body care, skincare. Skincare is the next thing. And so Claudia's like, "Oh, my audience loves skincare and I love my audience and I want them to buy stuff from me. So this is what we're going to do." And I think that's kind of the loop that consumers are tired of being stuck in and are looking to break out of. And I think they're going to flock to heritage brands as the answer to that.
well,
I think that makes sense. I mean, if I was a I mean, I feel like the way that, at least in like the style space, like there was the whole movement where like, fashion creators, again, like Ariel Charnas and, oh my gosh, speaking of Mormon influencers, what's her name?
Rachel Parcell.
Rachel Parcell. They did their collaborations with Nordstrom. I feel like Nordstrom's was like the, testing ground to see if you could like, you'd have a line and if it would take off, if you could move
Mhm.
merchandise, then it would like, help inspire you to create your own line. And like both of those examples, like Ariel went on to make something navy,
Mhm.
which did not, it was sort of a big push from, like just an online brand into like brick and mortar stores, and it didn't really, land. And then similarly, like I was even so surprised when Rachel Parcell shut down her dress line. So like I feel like even those moves, Megan, are illustrative of what you're talking about. It's almost just like a return back to simplicity.
Mhm.
And like
Even Paige DeSparvo, I love Paige. I didn't buy her pajamas.
Yeah.
If
I
they were
know
at
you would
Nordstrom,
have been like the perfect.
they were at Nordstrom, I might have bought them. But it's like I just don't, and especially like my thing with clothes is I like to buy multiples and have them forever. And I was like, we'll see if Paige is still around in 18 months. I don't want to get addicted to these pajamas and then they're gone. Like, and that's kind of where consumers are at, where it's like they view investing in these brands as like an investment that they're not necessarily as game to just jump in just because they're favorite. Even if they love that creator, it's not enough. That's not moving the needle anymore. Whereas like back when Tati launched her beauty palette, I was ready to buy sight unseen just because that was what you did back then, you know?
Mhm.
Like when Kylie was selling her lip kits, it sold out immediately because that's what you did back then. That's was part of being a fan. And now you're like, no, that's
What
not
do
gonna
you
work.
okay, so on this, I'm just curious then, what are your thoughts on like Alex Earl with like sip marks then?
Yeah, like where is that like is it going anywhere? You know? Like have we seen anything like since Coachella? Like
Yeah. I don't
I
know.
know. It's interesting, Alex Earl, I feel like she's, like, kind of, like, cornering the, like, beverage market. I haven't seen, like, a ton about Sip Marks since they did their big Coachella activation last year, but, like, she's an investor in Poppy, famously. She was in their Super Bowl commercial last year, and pretty sure she invested, like, in the past month in a 3rd beverage brand. Um, Alex Earl.
I think there's the
And
difference too between investing and launching, right? So it's like
Mm, yeah.
I think or like even buying or like I don't what MrBeast is doing is very much giving like VC, like I'm coming in, I'm buying something I don't understand and then I'm going to run into the ground versus like, I feel like what Alex Earl is doing is that part of her business, I feel like is more like driven by her dad of being like, you're not going to be young and hot forever. You need to make some investments so that you don't have to like do Greg Readiness with me when you're 60. And I think she's investing in these things, but it's not the Alex Earl soda. It's not, it's like it's Margs. And then Alex Earl being on board gives them access to Alex Earl's audience that they probably would not be able to afford otherwise. So I see that as more as like an equity brand deal than I see it as like Alex
Right.
Earl brand.
I
Right.
also think,
That's
think she
interesting.
just invested in Georgie, which is an energy drink. So now she has an alcoholic beverage, a like alternative soda, like better for you probiotic soda, and now an energy drink. She is, I have to say, like, I don't think she's done like a big activation like Sip Margs, but like they're always present. Either Poppy, a Sip Margs, and now I'm sure Georgie are like always present in her get ready with me's. If she's like getting ready to go out, she has a Sip Marg and she has
cool.
all of her friends drinking Sip Margs. And if she's getting ready for a business meeting, she has like a Poppy. So yeah, I feel like that's smart. It like fits.
You know
I
what's
think
funny that I was just going to say, like, even hearing you talk about it, and as I think about, just looking at this, like, MrBeast, range of investments and, like, what he's doing, and, like, as we're trying to, like, guess at, like, is there a big picture plan here? It sort of reminds me of, like, I have a friend who, he owns and runs a hedge fund, and the theme of it is sleep. So, like, meaning everything that he invests in, it has to do with sleep, like optimizing sleep, helping sleep, like whatever. And it can range from anything, And so it's just funny hearing you, Emma, sort of talk about Alex Earl and like these beverages, because it's like, it is like, it could be like a theme. It's like going throughout my day, there's like a caffeinated version, then there's like a whatever, I'm having fun. And then there's like a hydration one. Like there's like a whole sort of theme that you could do. And I just wonder, like, if there's like a big picture plan with MrBeast. I mean, he just has such a big commanding audience. Like some of this might even just be like throwing paint on the wall too. Like he's got the money, like can just try it and see if there's like different sectors that just haven't had, like an influencer of that level. Like just see what happens, kind of. But I think it's fascinating, and I think it's interesting, like, Megan, just going back to your point of like, rather than starting something new, which we always say, it's like so hard. It's like creating something from nothing. Like, I just feel like when we work with clients who make something, like everyone has just these like stars in their eyes, like, oh, I have this great idea. And it's like, you cannot underestimate how hard it is to drive awareness of something. Like to get something to be known is like incredibly hard. Like it makes me even think of like Lauren Bostic and Skinny Confidential and like all the products that she has, like it, and again, it's like she's hustling on it, but it's just like, are they household names? No, like will they ever be? I don't know, but it is interesting to think about almost if you like pivoted it and then if you created like a theme, right? And like, that's like curated marketing in and of itself. It's like, anyway,
Well, I
random
think
thoughts.
what you're saying is that there's perspective there. And even with Alex Earl, like she has a very clear perspective. Like she's a party girl and like everything she's investing in fits under that perspective. And I think our complaint with MrBeast is like, we don't get it. We don't get where he's coming from. Like, what is your perspective other than awareness as like a goal or like being big, being the biggest, climbing the charts? Like there's no perspective there. And I think as the media's gotten more fragmented, that's kind of what people are looking for right now is kind of like understanding where every perspective is coming from so that they can make informed decisions for themselves. And MrBeast, it's just, he's very like all over the place. And I'm like, I don't get this perspective. Why fintech other than the money,
Or maybe the perspective is like thinking of all of the things for Gen Z. It's like all of the important touch points for like Gen Z, right? Like, because it's more about like, it's almost like
who we
an
want him
Huh.
to be the Willy Wonka of Gen Z, you know, like
Do we want him to? No, I'm not saying this is not like my.
like if that's what his goal is, I think we should all be very concerned.
Is MrBeast on his way to becoming the Willy Wonka of Gen Z? Like literally.
That's so true. I mean, he has a chocolate company.
No, literally.
That's so funny, Megan. I'd never heard that. I mean,
Like I can't speak for Gen Z. I'm not Gen Z, but I mean, like I'm not. No.
I think, to be quite honest, and to blow the lid off of MrBeast's whole thing, he even tying him to Gen Z is generous. He is like a YouTube babysitter. Whatever, like he is like whatever age range of kids get parked in front of the TV or an iPad to watch content, that's his audience. And I think it's probably much younger than he would like to admit. And like that's why his products are like Lunchables and things like this. And maybe even this is just kind of like an attempt to raise the age on his audience a little bit by instead of going after like kids, because it's like that's getting him into some hot water. It's like, okay, we're gonna go for teens.
yeah, teens. Oh,
And which I'm like is like an ethically gray area, but might be less ethically gray than where MrBeast has been.
yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what he does next. I mean, if he goes for like cell phones, that's also teens. I mean, I guess kids are getting phones younger and younger, but yeah, something to track going forward. Well, thank you guys so much.
Coming for your teens. Title of
That's
that.
the title.
No, he's the Willy. Is MrBeast the Willy Wonka of Gen Z?
Well, yeah. So I'll set a Google alert for MrBeast and just keep tabs on what he's doing. Well, thank you guys so much. Thank you guys for tuning in. And we will be publishing this on Friday. If you want to come back and go deeper into any of the topics we covered. Thank you guys.
Yay! Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.